Hello everybody, welcome to part 9 of building the body on the Studebaker. I thought I'd show you a few of the images that I had found on the internet. Back when I chose the 37 Studebaker as my inspiration vehicle, I was drawn to it by the grille. I thought that would look good. And also I envisioned that somebody after World War II had found this old pickup, taken it, and then they had taken off the fenders, removed the top, they channeled it, they sectioned it, and they took it out on the dry lake bed for speed trials. So that is the vision I have for this car. I'm using these other images just to help me understand how I can proportion the grille and you know, try to get the look as close as I can. So I made this list of things that are still left to do. Let me show you that. Well, here's the list I came up with. The nose, the grille, the windshield, the intake and the exhaust, a roll bar, an engine screen, bed rails, tailgate, bumper, seats, wheel covers, dash, paint, decals, engine mods, steering wheel. Whew. Man, this one's going to take me a while to finish. But that's alright. I have this vision in my head. I can see this thing when it's finished. So I'll just keep working down the list, and before you know it, I'll have this thing done. So right now I'm focused on the grille layout. I don't have the materials yet, but I wanted to kind of develop the layout and understand the size of the bars, the spacing, see if I like the look. I have a lead on the material I want to use. So let me show you what I've got going so far. You'll notice there's quite a few grille bars here, more than I could put on this car in a practical sense. When I was building the model, see how there's quite a few less bars, and I like this look. And you know, we don't have to create an exact replica of our inspiration car. So right now I think I'm going to use, these bars will all be a 1/2 inch, half round aluminum. I've been looking online, and I found 6-foot links of aluminum half round. It's 1/2 inch wide, and I think it's about 3/8 tall. I'm going to buy a piece of it and see if it'll do the job. But I've been doing some layout work with some 1/2 inch strips of poster board. Let me show you that. So these strips of poster board are 1/2 inch wide, and then the gap between is a 1/2 inch. And I'm trying to get a feel for proportion. I want it to look all right, not too busy, but you know, pleasing to the eye. At this point, this paper right here is for this radius right there. I have to draw that, and then, you know, it'd be a 1/2 inch and curve down. If you look at this photograph, see, it's a pretty tight radius, but I'm not going to do it that tight. I have to be able to bend this half round without cracking it. So it'll be a more pleasing shape. I'm using a compass to work on the radius. Let me show you that. So I'm trying out different radius proportion here using the little compass. I'm going to draw several circles, cut it out, and then overlay it and see which one I like best. This is the shape of the aluminum. It comes, like I say, 1/2 by 1/2, and it's a half round. It comes in a mill finish, which means I could polish it. It's of course not polished with a mill finish. And my thinking is I would tap some holes and put some little studs in it. And I should be able to bend this in any direction if I'm careful and I don't get too sharp with the bends. Plus, as it comes around and dies into it, I can cope it to fit nicely. And you know, against a dark painted finish, if these bars were polished shiny like a mirror, I think it looked pretty good. Here you can see I've completed the layout of the grill, at least this version, and I'm happy with that, I guess. I think it'll look all right. This gives me time to think about it, how I might ultimately do the grill. Also, I can measure all the strips so I can get an idea how much material I need. I've also been working on the headlight buckets. Interesting shape. So this was my first attempt. That's a 5-inch circle. And then I made another version. It's 4.5 inch. And of course this shape isn't correct. It was just easy to make a cone for mock-up purposes. But I think it's an interesting look. When I look at the photograph of the pickup, the headlights appear to be fairly large in scale. So I'm erring towards the 5-inch diameter version. My goal is to make a third version of the headlight bucket. I'm going to use foam for this third version. Here I'm using a hot wire cutter I have. It's got a little variable transformer right here. And then that plugs into my hot wire foam cutter. This is nichrome wire. N-I-C-H-R-O-M-E, chrome, nichrome. And then I have a block of foam here. This is just a piece of aluminum with a nice smooth top edge, and then it's one on each side. And I can drag the wire through here and cut it. Alright, so I can make several blocks out of this. Basically I need a 6 by 6 by 8 inch block to start with, so I need 2 of those, and if I screw it up I have enough to make a couple more. So let's cut some blocks. It's moving pretty slow, but it's cutting. If I turn the power up too much, it'll melt the wire. The goal is to not put too much pressure on the wire. Just enough to keep it moving, but if I press too hard, I could break the wire. Okay. Does a pretty good job. And I lifted on it a little bit, but that won't matter. That'll get sanded off. Alright. I'm cutting 2 of these blocks. And then this is a 5-inch circle. And this is 1.5 inches. So I'll take it out on the belt disc machine and grind away most of this. And then I'll finish the shape by hand. Let's see how it turns out. For a few minutes I've been grinding away at this, aiming towards the 5-inch circle and the 1.5 inch circle, and then I'll shape it by hand, and then we'll see how it looks against the car. And if the scale is good, this will be the plug for a fiberglass bucket, headlight bucket. That's my thinking at this point anyway. Here I have a sanding block, and I've been working on this one, and you can see how it's starting to take shape where this one still, I haven't worked on it yet. Alright, I'll just keep working this till I'm happy with the shape. Okay, so there's my first attempt. I think it's maybe a little bit too big, but I'm heading in the right direction if you look at the shape. You can see the shape. And then I have an idea for a headlight lens. So I think I'll keep the overall shape but just reduce it in size a little bit. Keep working at it. I have both of the buckets roughed out, and they're at 5-inch diameter, and I'm going to drop them down to 4.5 inch and see how that looks. So a little more sanding. I set the compass at 2 1/4, and it gives me that 4.5 inch circle. So I'll sand to that line and shape the whole thing accordingly. See how it looks. Here you can see the difference. A 4 1/4 inch circle right here. And I think this is heading in the right direction. This looked too big and bulky, and now this is looking more pleasing to the eye. Well, my gut's telling me it's still a little bit too big. Maybe not so much curve here, maybe more of a shallow arc. Okay, so these are both sanded down to 4.5 inches. And I think they eyeball up pretty good. Let's fit them to the car and see how that looks. Okay, so here's the headlight mock-up. I've spent about a day and a half messing with different patterns and shapes, and I'm happy with the foam. I think I'll use it to make a fiberglass bucket. And I think the shape of the bucket captures the intent of the headlight buckets on the Studebaker pickup. Okay. Now that I've more or less mocked up the grille bars and the headlights, there's a couple more features. Looking here on the model, there's these rails and this screen, and then some kind of bumper. I'll do the roll bar later. The seat, you remember when I made that seat a couple years ago? I'm going to cut it up and make it work, but I'll do that later. I need to mock up the windshield and come up with some kind of hood ornament, but that'll be later. Right now I want to focus on these and this screen. So I have a material I want to use for this rail. Let me show you that. So what I have here is a rectangle tube. It's chromed already, and I'm going to lay it on top here. And you know, in my thinking, in my scheme from a couple years ago, these would be little LED tail lights, or brake lights actually. I don't know, that might be a little ambitious, but I thought this would make a nice material. It's already pre-chromed, and I'd have to come up with a way to mount it and fill these ends, but let me cut a couple pieces and lay them on the car and see how it looks. I think these are going to look good. This chrome bar will look nice against a painted surface. Yeah, nice contrast. Yeah, it should be nice if I could make those little brake lights. We'll see. Okay. Let's see. Now let's work on the screen thing a little bit. See what I can come up with. Out in my scrap pile I had this piece of perforated aluminum. It looks to be about a 1/16 thick. It's certainly stout enough for what I have in mind. I thought I'd put a panel here and here, and probably just leave this open for easy access at this point. So the foot shear made quick work of this perf metal. So the idea is it will drop down in a little bit. Yeah, I think that'll look pretty good. I have an idea on how to install this. So my idea for this screen is to, with the foot shear, I can shear up some, probably 40 thousandths. Then I'll make some brackets, some strips, probably half by half, maybe a little smaller. Then the perf metal will go underneath the lip and be riveted, and it'll frame it completely. And then this lower bottom leg, this leg of the L, will rivet into the side of the bed. So it's handy having the foot shear and the finger brake, because I can just make these components. Alright, so that's my goal for right now, is to make some of these angle pieces. The next step of installing this perf metal are these angle pieces. We'll install like that with the perf metal sitting on top. That's a 1 inch by 3/4. I decided to take the bed off and set it here on the table because I have several things I need to do. One is install the angle around here for the screen. Here's a little pattern I made, and then this is the first one coming along. I also need to do these rails that go on the top here, and I've devised a method on how I'm going to install those. I need to come up with a bumper, some kind of bumper, so it'll look better back here. And then you can see how I have 2 brackets back here, one here on this other side. I need to also install a couple up on the front. That way this bed will be secured to the chassis. Okay, so let's get to work on all of these things. I've been working on installing the angle pieces. These are all riveted into place now. There's another piece that goes here, but I want it to be of a particular shape. So I have the pattern here. Let's put it in here. Okay. So you can see right here, I'm going to use the shrinker stretcher to create the bend in the angle. And hopefully I can get this radius too. We'll see. Ultimately, the screen goes in here and it'll have this look to it. Alright, let's keep working on it. Things are progressing nicely. I think it looks good. I went with the square corner. It's just simple. Then I can keep things moving along. I decided to put the screen on top so that I could run screws through here so I could remove these if I ever need to service the drivetrain. So a little more work and I'll have this installed. Let's finish this up. So I've been thinking of a way to clean up this edge, this rough edge. So I'm going to try to do a hemmed edge. I took some aluminum here, same stock, and I bend it 90 degrees on the finger brake, and then I hammer it over, keeping it smooth on one side. And I think it looks a whole lot better. And there's still room to put the screws in. Alright, I'm going to move in that direction. I made up these little pieces. One leg is a little longer than the other. And I'm hammering over the shorter edge. And this side is nice and smooth. It looks good. So now I'm fitting a piece in here and in here. I have to say, adding that hemmed edge cleaned that up real nice. Yeah, I like the looks of that. So I just have to put a few sheet metal screws in here to hold them in place, and I can call that done. All right. I slipped the bed back on to see how the panels look around the engine, and I'm happy with the results. Looks a little more finished than just leaving it open. I can get to the air cleaner, the fuel, the pole starter. That's nice. All right. I want to work on the bracket that holds this bed on now. So I need to install a bracket there and there to go along with the bracket I have here and down there. That should hold the bed on adequately. I added these little tabs, so now I'm going to drill the holes in the chassis. So currently I have 2 holes in the back, and I tapped those. I threaded them, and that's my plan for up here. I have the spot marked. So I'll drill these out. And I'll tap those. Now ultimately I'll weld, when it's more convenient, I'll weld a nut or something on the inside here. But for now, a threaded hole will work. I have a couple of 1/4 that's coarse thread. And I want to drill a hole and tap it. So my chart here says 1/4 thread and drill. 1/4 use the number 6. And as luck would have it, I have a brand new number 6. Here I have a number 6 bit, and I have my tap handle and the 1/4 installed. Here I'm using a light cutting oil as I work the tap down into the bore. It's coming along pretty good. Alright, that thread's in there, very nice. Alright. Okay, I'm happy with the installation of the front brackets. Those will thread in real nice. Okay, moving on. I finished adding screws, so now these are in here solid. And next I'm turning my attention to the 2 top rails that go here. I'm getting ready to drill some holes so that I can install this on the top rail of the bed. I have some screws here and some screw caps. I'm going to use some double stick tape on the underside, but I won't stick it until the car is painted. That way if the screws ever came loose, at least it's still held on by the tape. So here I'm making a little aluminum plug. It's just 1/8 inch thick. This is the inside of that tube. And I got one finished. I'm going to shape it, and then on the other end I'm going to cut down this reflector and fit it in there. So here I've been shaping the reflector to fit in there, and then the other end is aluminum. I'll glue those in with epoxy, I suspect. Okay, I finished the rails on the top of the bed here. There's the aluminum end, a little screw cover. And then the reflectors look pretty good. Simple. Yeah, I like the way that turned out. I've been looking at this photo of this rear bumper, so that is giving me the inspiration for what I want to do here. I thought I would make this rear bumper out of this 3/16 by 4 aluminum that I had, and then this piece of steel is a potential pattern. I like this little curve on the end, and then a radius or an arc on the end that emulates the stock bumper, and then it would stand off the body just a small amount, not much. I have to figure out a standoff method of attachment. I cut this piece to 23 inches, and then I used the compass to create this arc on each end. I'm going to cut away that material. Using the slip roll, I put a little arc in this piece. I think that'll work. For the standoffs, I decided to use the same material as these rails. And then this will get polished, so it'll look like a mirror when it's finished. I just need to come up with some attractive looking fasteners. I don't really want to use carriage bolts, they're kind of rough. I'll go to the hardware store tomorrow and see what I can find. I need to slip some wood in here so that when I bolt it together it doesn't crush that. On this other side too. I'm always collecting nuts and bolts and parts and pieces, and out there in the bin I have these small elevator type bolts. So I think for now I'll use those. It looks like a 1/4-20. It should be plenty strong enough. They're a little bit long. I need to cut them down, but that's no big deal. Here I laid out the 4 holes for the bumper, and I'm going to drill the 1/4-inch holes. With the palm sander, I sanded this piece to 80, 120, and 180 for now. Later I'll do 220 right on up the ladder till I can get it to polish out. For now, let's get it mocked up and see how it looks. I'd say we could call this job finished for now. Yeah, I'm happy with the way the bumper looks and the standoffs. All right. Starting to develop a look of its own. Okay, I think that's a wrap on this video. I'm happy with the progress and looking forward to the next segment. Things are coming along pretty good. I'm real anxious to make those headlight buckets and work on the grill. Okay, as always, I appreciate that you watch, and we'll see you next time.